There's a popular belief that eating 6 dates a day in the final weeks of pregnancy can ease labour. And I remember thinking, if I eat a couple of dates a night with loads of peanut butter, it might not spike my blood sugar and it might make birth better. But is there actually any science behind eating dates, or is it just a well-loved myth?
There are studies on it. I actually have a very detailed article on this exact topic on my website. I don't have it pulled up in front of me, but go to lilynicholsrdn.com and search eating dates, and you'll find a big article on it. The evidence is mixed. So as a whole, some of the studies show it might help shorten the duration of labor. According to many, I don't know if I want to call them urban legends, there's some sort of cultural beliefs around it. It might soften the cervix. It seems to work for some women, and some women it makes no difference whatsoever. When I was pregnant, I actually wore a continuous glucose monitor at different time points and tested out 6 dates on an empty stomach. Not a good experience. I would not recommend it. Even as somebody has very excellent blood sugar control and no gestational diabetes, it caused a really massive blood sugar spike. And yeah, that can be mitigated a little bit with maybe some protein. What I'd recommend is, if you're going to do the dates thing, I don't recommend it for women with gestational diabetes almost at all, unless you have a really mild case of gestational diabetes and you're not struggling with your blood sugar. But if for somebody who doesn't have blood sugar issues and you still want to do 6 dates a day, what I would do is do 2 dates after each meal, as like your dessert, and make sure that meal had a decent amount of protein in it. That would mitigate the blood sugar spike the best of all. But it is going to raise your blood sugar. So take it or leave it. I mean, I had 2 pretty straightforward home births and did not consume 6 dates a day, barely any dates at all, and everything was fine. You'll see even in the comments on that blog on my site, it's all over the map with people, oh, it definitely made my labor better. It made no difference. It's not consistent, is what I'll say.
That's a fantastic answer. And I think sometimes it might be a bit of a psychological preparation as well, of feeling I'm doing everything I can to prepare myself. And thank you also for sharing those links. We'll drop those in the show notes so that people can find the information really easily. And so with the rise of personalized vitamins and supplements, what are the must-have vitamins? And is there like one supplement that you think is really underrated and overlooked when it comes to a baby's development?
So, I do recommend a comprehensive prenatal vitamin pretty much as an insurance policy. No matter how good your diet is, there is a possibility that there's holes, and we don't want to take the risk in nutritional deficiencies when we have like a very easy, low-risk solution like a prenatal vitamin. That said, prenatal vitamins don't necessarily have every single thing in them, so they're not a replacement for eating a good quality diet. It's an insurance policy. You're supplementing your diet, not replacing, you could just eat junk food and then take your prenatal and everything's hunky-dory. On top of a prenatal, sometimes they don't have enough vitamin D. So if you have your vitamin D levels tested and they're running low, you may need to add extra of that. Most prenatals do not have omega-3 fats, or if they do, they don't have enough. So a separate omega-3 supplement specifically that contains DHA would be necessary. Typically that's a fish oil or an algae-based DHA supplement. There's, a small subset of women who eat plenty of fish and seafood and don't need that extra. In the US, the average woman is only eating like 3 ounces of fish per week, so they're not getting anywhere close to enough DHA. And then really any other supplements that are added, I think, are based on what sort of symptoms you're having, and what your labs are telling you. So are you anemic and it's iron deficiency? Well, yeah, you may need an iron supplement. Not everybody needs that. Does your diet have no dairy foods whatsoever and your prenatal only has a little bit? Well, You may need some extra calcium in there, or you may need some other nutrients depending on what else your diet is low in. Like usually the more limited animal foods are in the diet, the more likely you are to need extra supplements. So that is just a consideration that you'd want to look at. Like I run dietary analyses and see exactly what's falling short. And if the prenatal and the other, supplements I've selected are not covering it, then we may have to add those on separately.
Of course. And so if you think that you might have low iron, so ahead of having a blood test, what kind of foods could you also eat just to make sure that you're keeping iron kind of high throughout pregnancy?
The best iron-rich foods to focus on would be the ones that are rich in something called heme iron. It is the most bioavailable form of iron. And that form of iron is exclusively found in animal foods. It's highest in shellfish specifically, so oysters, clams, mussels, organ meats like liver, and then from there it's red meat, dark meat like poultry, dark meat like game meat, for example, and dark-fleshed fish. Those would be by far like the most bioavailable sources of iron. There are absolutely cases where you have women who go through their entire pregnancies not needing any supplemental iron, right? There's some where you could do all the right things and it seems like their iron dips really low throughout pregnancy and they need to have an extra supplement. But I would focus most on those animal sources. I do, not to like call out my site again, but I do have a very interesting article on iron absorption from foods showing like the relative quantity of iron, but also the relative absorption of iron from different foods, because ultimately it's how much you absorb, not how much is in the food. So I just want to give caution if you're like listening to me right now thinking, oh, well, but broccoli has this amount or pumpkin seeds have this amount of iron. It's true, those do contain iron, but the proportion of which you absorb of that iron is so low that you have to eat massive portions of it in order to get an equivalent amount of bioavailable iron compared to, having a burger or having like an ounce of liver or something. So we do want to keep that in mind. They do actually, in the States anyways, set the iron recommendations in terms of what you need to get from diet for vegetarians about 80% higher than omnivores to account for the difference in absorption. So just know that you may have to aim like a lot higher on iron intake if you're aiming for plant sources versus animal.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. So we're actually nearing the end of this podcast, and I'd really love to know if you were in an elevator with a pregnant woman and you could only give her 3 simple, easy nutrition tips, what would they be?
So first of all, I probably wouldn't offer any nutrition tips unless she asked me. So I'm going to assume she's asked me,
Yeah.
Hey, what are your top tips? My top tips would be to prioritize protein. We didn't really get into it a whole lot on this podcast, but your protein needs are a lot higher during pregnancy than outside of pregnancy. And they are a lot higher than what our conventional guidelines suggest. So aim for more protein, and I recommend an omnivorous diet. So have both animal and plant proteins coming in because you're getting different nutritional benefits from each. Another thing I would recommend would be to, as we talked about, include eggs in her diet. That's going to be a really key way to hit her choline intake, which is so vital for baby's brain development. And let's see, a third one would be, I guess I'd say, not to counter everything I just said, but don't worry about being perfect. It really isn't about being perfect. It's about trying to fit in as many nutrient-dense foods as you can, but still having some wiggle room to enjoy your food as well. So our food is not just nutrition, it's also enjoyment and pleasure and feeling good in your body. So, think about your nourishment also from, is it supporting your well-being, and are you happy? Like, are you feeling good eating the way that you're eating? Because if not, we need to make some adjustments. And for some women, that actually means kind of easing up on trying to be so picture perfect and giving yourself more variety.